Welcome back to another episode of our Wyckoff Crypto discussion. In the last two sessions, we have discussed your questions about the methodology, but today we are back with our live market analysis. As usual, this information is for educational purpose only, as not an investment recommendation, so please stop the video and read the disclaimer. What's going on Bitcoin? Bitcoin is accelerating to the upside. We are in the speculative stage, and you can easily identify on the 4-hour time frame these 4 accumulation structures. Each accumulation is steeper and shorter in duration, confirming that buyers are accepting higher prices. And look at the volume there. Each time supply comes in, absorption occurs very, very quickly. The last consolidation is even upsloping, so it's suggesting that market participants are still attracted by this asset. And even the last big down bar on the chart has an impressive demand tail followed by a fast recovery. So this move is very similar to what we have seen in early 2017. In this kind of a market environment, each local top looks climatic, extremely overbought. But in a bull market like 2017, not just in the crypto space, but in the stock market as well, trends usually tend to persist, ignoring conventional overbought readings until the final climatic move occurs. For this reason, we always want to use our Wyckoff tactics to time the possible conclusion of the up move. And I think that this 4-hour chart gives us a great perspective on the current trend. The big down bar on the 3rd of January looks like a change of behavior. It's the biggest reaction since the beginning of the trend. But look at what happens next. The volume signature contracts again. This absorption suggests us that there's likely still some room for a final climatic move that can push the price to the 45,000 area. And we'll show our PNF targets in the next slide. But before that, Roman, your thoughts.
Well, yeah, it's very impressive run. And first of all, happy New Year, everybody. Really happy to be back with Alessio to this series. Very many great thoughts that Alessio just given us, especially on the duration of those areas of the reaccumulation. You kind of see how there is urgency. There is such urgency by institutions to be in this asset right now. And that's why the move is just, so big. And you have to think about the performance matrix that institutions and specifically portfolio managers, have to be in line with. They have to have this asset right now in their portfolios. They have to show some kind of relative outperformance, and Bitcoin provides them exactly with that picture. And then, that type of institutional urgency to participate drives the prices high. Now, we could see how the momentum signature changes here, right? So, for instance, look at this rally. Look at the next rally. They're kind of similar in terms of the character of how the price moves, and that's very important. And then something changes. Look at the way how the price moves now. And even here, if we would compare it to the previous 2 instances, we could see that the momentum has increased. So those are the characteristics of the climactic run, as Alessio has said. And during the climactic run, you might have those instances where a change of behavior might come, but it is not going to produce a change of character. So again, I just want to reiterate, a change of behavior versus a change of character are 2 different things that we're discussing here. And the ability of the price to show elements of the demand with the increased result to the upside, an ability to recover really fast and go to the new highs above the previous resistance point are extremely important. Even at the higher level, as supply comes in, there is really nothing stopping the price from moving further up. So I would be thinking here about some kind of stop loss strategy where we are automatically, mechanically moving the stop loss up as a trailing stop loss. And then whenever the price is going to stop, we are not necessarily want to, catch the top. We just want to catch that change of behavior. And I'm sure that we'll talk about this more. Alessio, yeah, so the biggest question is, what is our target zone?
Yeah, so I think that one of the most successful analog that we've shown since the beginning of our Wyckoff crypto discussion is this chart of Chainlink. So Chainlink was the market leader in the last 3 years. And once rotation has occurred from Chainlink to Bitcoin, the structure of Chainlink was clearly showing us the path for Bitcoin. So let's continue to explore this very powerful analog. The up move that has occurred in Chainlink until September 2020 had the same characteristics of what we are seeing now. So remember that we are seeing here two logarithmic charts. When we compare these two accumulation structures on Bitcoin and Chainlink, we can almost immediately notice two counts highlighted in blue and yellow. So right now we have just exceeded the first count and we are trying to attack the 45,000 area. So there is some fuel in the tank. But this is the point where you want to be very aggressive with your stop loss strategy, as Roman has said. So if a reaction takes place here, you don't want to lose your gains, especially if the next correction is dramatic, like the one that we have seen on Chainlink. So please remember that these are logarithmic scales. So everything here looks so quiet, but every move that you see here is at least a 10x and then a 50% correction. So, and correction, when you switch to the arithmetic scale, can look very scary. So what do you think about this analog and the targets, Roman?
Yeah, I love it. And, it's just so nice how this particular area is lined up to this area right here. And I think this is what, you're discussing here, Alessio.
Yeah.
And then the subsequent move to the upside. And you could see how, from, let's say, 3 to 8, that's a big move right there out of the base. And yet, with the pause, we're having a continuation and we're having a higher target that Alessia was describing. So again, just thinking about the way of how the price moves up in the climactic run and thinking about the way of how the price is going to move afterwards. It's going to show some kind of stop in action. It's going to show first signs of deterioration. By the way, one of the simplistic exit strategies that we could find is kind of like an expansion of the downward result on a downward spread. And we could see this in Chainlink here. We could see it in Chainlink here. We could see it in Bitcoin here. We could see it in Bitcoin right here. So climactic run usually going to have all of those, up bars right here as well, by the way. And then, if you're just following the stop loss and then it gets you out automatically, that's one of the best, more efficient exits that you could potentially have. Another idea, for your exit strategy could be going to the lower time frame. And on the lower time frame, you could use the same technique with the stop losses and, find yourself exiting a little bit earlier. Also, I would consider scaling out of this position. And, we could, talk about scaling out probably in other episodes. All right, let's go to the next chart, Alessia.
Many students have asked us the point and figure charts for Bitcoin. So these are my updated counts. Same principle, conservative count and aggressive count. And look how Chainlink right now, with all eye on Bitcoin, is currently building a new accumulation course, which could be quite substantial. So the idea of the rotation is always there. And we are already seeing important signs of participation in the altcoin market, not just in Bitcoin. So we'll talk about rotation outperformance in next slides. But before that, Roman, I was thinking in the short term, we'll likely have a pause. But in the long term, there is still a big count there for this whole multi-year accumulation structure on Bitcoin. And I strongly recommend to all of you to watch yesterday's session, the Wyckoff market discussion with Bruce Roman, And this first episode of the year is free, and you can watch it on our YouTube channel. Yesterday, Roman Bruce have presented a great case study devoted to Bitcoin, gold, silver, and the dollar. So, Roman, what do you think about this whole structure?
Well, first of all, I really like the idea of the analog here, and I think that PNF even shows it better than the vertical charts, right? So if we would be thinking, where is the Bitcoin in the relationship to this PNF chart of Chainlink? Well, we are somewhere here. We are in this climactic final run, but as Alessio has mentioned, we've only taken the count of this area right here. What if we would take this whole count? Can you imagine the potential that the Bitcoin have? And one might say, like, well, how could you make this determination, so far into the future, into the potentiality of the higher prices? Well, when you look at the way how the price in Bitcoin moved up, when you look at the institutional participation, they are not selling, they're taking profits, and they are much more aggressively buying than they are taking profits. So that suggests that institutions want to stay in this position for some time. And this also means that profit taking will come, and most likely we're going to go into some kind of reaccumulation. This reaccumulation will help out to weed out weak hands. Those are the weak hands that are short-term oriented speculators like ourselves. And for some time, that asset might be not as attractive from the long-term point of view, like the chain link was creating this, large base. But what a great idea, Alessia, about the rotation. So I would just say I'm just extremely excited about the crypto market in general, that there is a lot of activity there, that there is a lot of money coming to that market, and that allows the rotation to happen. So whenever the Bitcoin is going to have some profit taken, and we're going to see a meaningful change of behavior, where would the money go? It would go to the asset that is considered right now undervalued by institutional principles, and then those assets are going to start moving with more outperformance than the Bitcoin. Another point, and there are so many great points here on this chart. Look at the conclusion of the climactic run that we have in Chainlink. You could even time your exit by this particular column of O's. This is a change of behavior column of O's that shows us that not only stopping action has happened, but now we're producing the reaction that is going to be much more substantial than anything that we've seen before. And you could see that the most substantial reaction has just recently happened, and we need to have something more significant than that. So something like this. All right. Well, Alessio, I'm spending so much time on this chart, but it's just so much fun. So what do we look at here?
So we'll talk about a possible rotation. The altcoin sector is participating in this leg up. So these are the low caps that crypto traders love so much. So we're jumping up and out of these consolidations, you can see. We've shown many points of entry on the way up in the past months, but if you are late now, we could still have a reaction in the market that can bring price back to the top of the resistance, a backing up action, and that would be a glorious point of entry. But I think it's very important to notice that in the last weeks, many small caps are already showing outperformance, and we will see this in the next slide. In the long term, this is what we want, outperformance. Your thoughts, Roman?
Well, two big points, and I'm going to repeat what I say here. Rotation is happening. And I think it's going to happen more when the Bitcoin is going to produce that, more meaningful change of character. Because again, the money from Bitcoin trade will go to other trades that are still developing and that are still considered by institutions and undervalued assets. So I think tactics are going to be extremely important here. How do we enter this? Because we see so much strength in the price movement and momentum increase in Bitcoin, I would be more aggressive in terms of the entry points and would be thinking that whatever reactions we might have, they might be not that substantial in other assets, but Bitcoin could produce a somewhat of a substantial change of behavior.
So this is FTX. We have discussed this chart in our last live market update in mid-December, right on the backing up action. That was a good call, a lot of relative strength there, and look what a beautiful rally now. I think that the speed of this rally is telling us that this whole area, the whole structure, is a big accumulation, big upsloping accumulation, and there is a higher to go in the long term. Of course, if you are late now, you must think in terms of intraday. But if you missed the entry on the backing up action, there is still a diabolic scenario that can help you to find another point of entry, like a deep correction in Bitcoin that temporarily pushed price back to the $6 area. This kind of event are very rare in the stock market. Just think of the COVID reaction. But remember that this is a very illiquid asset class. So shakeouts are very common. So assignment for today, please study Tesla in early 2020. Your Max, Roman.
Yeah, I think that Tesla analog could be very relevant here. I mean, usually this type of parabolic moves, requires somewhat of a significant correction for us to consider entering. And I would agree with Alessio that for the intraday traders, this is kind of like heaven right now because there is a lot of liquidity, a lot of volatility. So I would probably approach trading of this particular assets from that point of view. But if you're already in it, then you just have to understand the momentum characteristics of the move. The momentum suggests maybe we are going to have a reaction, but then there's going to be most likely an attempt to continue to newer highs.
Now another asset that we have covered in December is Litecoin. So look at that apex, a lot of inactivity, backing up action, and then we see a lot of participation on the way up. And this is exactly what we want to see, inactivity and then market participant that want to enter this market on the way up. I think that now we are just above the level of the resistance. I think that a backing up action on the prior high could be a very nice point of entry. But look at that volume. I think it's still possible that Litecoin continues this rally before correcting. And so you have to go on the intraday and use very short-term tactics here. What do you think, Roman?
Yeah, probably kind of the same thought. We're just in the new territory. We still have some momentum behind it. There is vertical absorption of the supply on the way up, actually, these two spots. So it's coming out of the formation on a little bit diminished volume signature that suggests that, yes, maybe we're going to have that, reaction. I would be very much interested to see how that reaction unfolds. Again, we are kind of like trying to squeeze out potential trades here. I think the best trade is the one that was already taken and the one that is coming. So I would be analyzing and thinking, about this particular asset in those terms.
YFI, very interesting information. We see a lot of volume, and then what happens on this big reaction? Nothing. There's no selling at all here. So a local absorption, while Bitcoin was like having some local stopping action, this asset is starting to outperform. So I think that the idea here is that you have to go on the intraday chart, and when Bitcoin is like having consolidation, then you can switch to YFI and try to buy this asset, because I think that we'll likely go to the resistance here, Roman.
Yeah, this is a much better positioned asset from both structural point of view and the rotational point of view. Why? Because we're just still in the trading range. We're slightly above one half of the height of the trading range. So, by our Wyckoff trading course rules, this is the point where we could enter the position. And obviously, if you want to be a little bit more precise, you can go to the lower time frame. But structurally, it positioned really well. Also, I like the breakout relative to the last attempt to go down. It just shows some strength and possible continuation. And then from the rotational points of view, think like an institutional money manager. They always will be looking for either big expansion of the momentum and they want to come in before the momentum starts, or they would be thinking about value and undervalue, right? Overvalued, undervalued assets. So relative to other crypto assets, this is an undervalued asset right now. So there might be some interest from institutions, as to participation in this particular a crypto asset.
Okay, this was a student submission, so I think in the short term this is not the best position since we still have another resistance there. But long term, I really love this structure because it's a big reaccumulation structure. We see a lot of participation and leadership in August and September. After that, a big correction. But look at this beautiful accumulation structure. And I think that if you look at the numbers on this scale, this asset in the long term can really reach high targets, much higher than Bitcoin. So very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the structure as well. I like this whole idea of trial leadership, then some volatility comes, then look at how volatility diminishes. So that is suggestive that we're going to have some kind of rally. We want to have the rally that shows the character of buying, and we see that from the volume signature. We see that from how the price moves. And what is extremely interesting is that the majority of the time the price spends in the upper part of the trading range. And this is a downsloping trading range, so you kind of have to see this in a little bit, tilt your head to the right, and then it will make more sense to you. But this ability to stay in the upper part of the trading range suggests not only continuation, but actually there might be some momentum characteristics, associated with the next move. So, the only reason why I think Alessio is suggesting that we're going to have some kind of reaction here after we touch that, stop in action, kind of like the resistance cluster type of stop in action here, is because of the supply that occurs on the volume spike. And that is also kind of solvable in this regard. Because when you look at the volume spikes that are significant, that occurred on this chart, and you think about the bars that occurred and what was the result of those bars, I would say that this latest bar is probably the most dynamic bar out of those three. We're seeing that in the first instance, out of the breakout, that volume spike still produced a relatively aggressive momentum bar. The second one, just because we don't have a lot of bias at this point, does not produce a big result. But the selling has been exhausted going into the low of this low volatility formation, so there is not a lot of result. Here, result to the upside is expanding as the effort to the upside is expanding as well. So this is still bullish and a very interesting, chart in itself. I would be very interested, Alessio, to see how that's going to unfold.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it, Alessio. Such a great session, a great start to the new year. Again, Happy New Year to everyone. And we're looking forward to, giving our weekly updates on the cryptos. Please check out Alessio's blog. I think it's such a great resource for all of you crypto traders as to more knowledge and more correct trading behavior that you should be studying as we're going through this most interesting phase in crypto asset history. And also, I think in a couple of weeks or so, we'll announce some new developments at Wyckoff Analytics as to what other products we're going to have for you crypto traders. And with that, Alessia, your final thoughts.
Well, it's always a great pleasure to discuss the crypto market with you, Roman, and Happy New Year to you all.